Let's put on some shades and tints, or shades and highlights. And remember, you guys, we're drawing this eye, so wherever you see some darker parts, we'll make sure to go darker. Watch out for your edges. Some of these edges are nice and soft and fading. Other ones are kind of hard inside the eye. Um, where the white of the paper shows through, we're going to have to make our undercoat a little bit lighter. So we're going to do both on top of this. So here's how it goes. And again, I'm referring to this, and it's just off screen here. I'm going to start with the darker stuff, and it doesn't matter that much what you start with. So I have that darker brown that I was using, and I have some blue over here to help make it a little bit darker. So I'm just going to, again, just touch some blue. If you want to mix it a little bit here first, that's great. I think that's a little on the dark side. So I'm going to add a little more brown to it. I don't worry about completely mixing it here, just because it'll mix on the canvas as well, or your painting surface. Now this may feel super dark at first, but that's all right. We can always make it lighter. And again, I'm referring up to here. And you have to think of this as layers. And I'm going to add a little bit of brown to it. So as I work this way, I'm going to want to let it get lighter because it does. Okay, so at first, I'm just going to start to add a little more brown to my brush and kind of continue. Lots of crisscross. And I see it's getting lighter, so I can start to add a little bit of white to my brush, and it'll mix with the brown in the brush. And I can go back this way, and you'll see at first it looks kind of streaky. And with painting, it's okay to kind of have your paint strokes show. It's called being painterly, which is totally fine, but I do want you to work on trying to get a smooth gradation. And by doing that, you have to use crisscross brush strokes, and you have to kind of go back and forth. And at some point, your brush runs out of paint, and then your brush just becomes a blending tool, kind of blending the paint that's on here. It'd be kind of like smudging it with your fingers, which a lot of artists do, and I may do on this too. So I'm going to just continue to add a little more white to my brush and just continue. See, it's awfully white at first, but I can put just the tiniest bit of brown in there if it got too bright too fast, and it will mix in the brush. I can go back this way and back this way. And the nice thing about acrylic, you guys, is if it's something that you just are not satisfied with at all, you can just go right back and paint right over it again after it dries. So a little white, a little brown. And also notice I'm kind of bumping into the eyebrow, where the eyebrow is going to go, because that's totally fine. My eyebrow lines will go over that. I'm kind of bumping into that crease, because that's even going to be darker. But you can automatically start to see how this is getting a little bit lighter as it comes across. So now on my resource, it gets really bright over here. So I'm going to add more white to my brush. My brush is feeling kind of sticky, so I'm just going to barely add. I touched the water as little as possible, just off camera there. And you can see how we're getting a nice little gradation. Just by adding a new color, you can get a gradation. And again, I am not worried about the color. I'm worried about the value, just like we've done in other assignments too. So at first, look, it's just like, whoa, that's like way too much. But as soon as you start to let it blend, and out here, it's going to get darker again. Okay, but I want to show you how, let me go around here, how you can go light on dark, then dark to light, back and forth kind of. So I'm going to start putting a little bit of brown back in there so it doesn't get too light, right now at least. A little bit of white, a little bit of brown, and I might start working around the eyebrow, and I can kind of almost paint over the eyebrow. Remember, we're going back to front. The skin is behind the eyebrow. So you paint the skin first and then the eyebrow on top. So don't worry if you are going over something a little bit. It's really no big deal. Okay, now that's fairly dry. If I want it to be brighter, that highlight area, like right in there, just going to add some white. And see how it kind of blends away? Some people like to do this. They'll take a little bit. This is called dry brushing. They'll take just a little bit of paint and kind of wipe off a lot of it. And some people will do this, just kind of tap, tap, tap to get the brightest part. See how it kind of just blends away? That's a nice technique too. And soft feathering. I'm not applying paint here, I'm just getting it to feather out, getting it to be a highlight. See, I think that can even be brighter. So a little more white, just tap it on there. Now over here, there's a subtle little dark spot right there. But I think that's certainly dark enough. So I'm going to work around it to get a little bit lighter. So I have to bring back some of the brown, maybe a little bit of the blue in there. And I'm going to try to get it a little bit lighter above that and below that, so that dark streak in the middle kind of comes to life. And all this is done with a medium-sized brush. See there, I'm starting to get it, that little lighter split on each side of that. Okay, I don't want this to last too long. I'll do more in time lapse, but that's kind of what all I'm going to be doing around the skin tone is just applying where it gets a little bit darker with my brown and kind of my dark blue, and just influencing it with white as it gets lighter. All right, there we go. So you can watch this, and then we'll be off on to our general kind of darks and lights, and then the next video will be details. All right, now we've got the skin area kind of basically put in all the shades and all the highlights, and those can still be darker and lighter later if I want to, especially after I put in some of the darker parts around the eye. So go ahead and try that next. You can see there was a lot of putting paint down and crisscrossy blending. There was putting some paint down, waiting for it to dry, adding a little bit more. Don't be afraid to go dark where it's dark and get it nice and light where it's light. And you can see now my skin tone has a blue to it, and that's no big deal. Again, we're worried about getting the gradations and edges appropriate and pretty appropriate to this image. Next, we'll get inside the eye right in there and show you how to do some of that. So go ahead and do this, and we'll see you on the next video.